Hello guys, welcome to my new video, and today I'm going to be talking about my journey while playing Restoration Shaman. And honestly, this is the best time to do this video because there's been some groundbreaking gameplay changes made to the class through some buffs or unexpected value of those buffs. And again, we're going to talk about my journey in terms of how Shaman feels in Mythic Plus, how it feels in Raid. Should you play this class even though the meta perception is not really there? Let's go and get started with the video. First of all, it's important to acknowledge that I'm gearing every single healer in this season 3, and the Restoration Shaman is my 4th healer to be geared. And this week I managed to pick up my tier set. Again, I did this in a span of one day, basically, based on the reset gear that I got. I got my tier set. I'm around 470 item level, so not really geared fully, but I've been doing a lot of the raids, I've been doing a lot of the Mythic Plus, and I've been experimenting with different builds. But let's go and have a look at Shaman's performance in Season 3. So right now, this is the new raid in terms of Mythic, in terms of 75 percentile, in terms of the pure HPS, you can see in 95 percentile is looking somewhat similar as well. So Shaman in the overall HPS department is actually doing pretty well. The HPS of Shaman is really not that bad, and you can do quite well. You can top HPS meters regardless of the difficulty of content you're doing, depending on which build you're running. There's a lot of ifs and buts and things like that, but Shaman is not doing that badly in terms of the pure HPS department. Even though Shaman's HPS is pretty decent, we didn't really see a lot of Resto Shamans being included in that race to world first, and that's a lot of that is to do with the fact of how to micromanage raid buffs in that 20-man mythic raiding composition, where you're trying to pick up as many good raid buffs as possible, or almost mandatory raid buffs that you need to pick up. So again, not many people are doing that race to world first or highest content in the world in terms of, you know, mythic raiding and stuff like that. If you're entry level mythic raiding, if you're doing heroic raiding, normal raiding, Resto Shaman in terms of pure HPS is doing pretty okay. If you go to something like heroic, again, heroic is very different because it's largely dependent on the group size and things like that, but you can do quite good HPS as Resto Shaman. And it's important to acknowledge that I'm trying to be a bit more casual in terms of looking at these HPS charts, looking at heroic, maybe looking at normal, because let's be honest, there's far too many players who base their healer choice on something like race to world first compositions, when in reality you really shouldn't do that. A lot of the people might not be looking to push the highest content in raiding or the highest content in Mythic Plus. They might be looking to do their weekly keys and things like that, and we'll talk about why I'm highlighting this, because I think Shaman is probably the biggest underdog healer right now. And this is a perfect example if you look at sub-creation, Mythic Plus information. And again, I cringe a little bit when I'm looking at sub-creation, because I know a lot of people follow this, but at the same time, they might not be aware of how these tier lists are generated. They are real player information, and there is definitely a meta of 3 healers that is being pushed in Season 3, with Discipline, Restoration, Druid, and Mistweaver being very popular. And then everyone else is kind of dipping. And this is for all affixes, keys ranging from plus 70s to 30s. But how many people are going to be looking at playing plus 30 keys? Restoration Shaman is definitely not as bad as the tier list makes it out. The same can be said for a lot of healers in this list. So I definitely don't want to encourage people to follow these tier lists and pick classes based on that, because I will talk about the value that Shaman brings, especially in these weekly keys. So let's go and talk about my experiences. And before I'm going to go about my experiences in terms of playing Restoration Shaman in all forms of content, we have to talk about some of the big gameplay changes that are happening to Shaman because of some of the buffs that happened very recently. You can see here the blue post made in terms of some of the changes that are happening, and the big one is Healing Stream Totem. Healing has been increased. Without getting too convoluted about the reasons why, this buff has been larger than expected because of how spec auras work and things like that, and that kind of means that Healing Stream Totem is absolutely, it's very competitive. So for the people who don't know, as Resto Shaman, you can only have Cloudburst Totem or Healing Stream Totem, and both of these totems provide a vastly different gameplay experience. Cloudburst Totem being something that requires a lot of micromanagement, a lot of, the skill ceiling for Cloudburst Totem is very high, and I'm a big Cloudburst Totem enjoyer. I almost feel like Cloudburst Totem made Resto Shamans, because without Cloudburst Totem, Resto Shaman is a lot more simplistic, and that's not just subjective opinion, that's factual. Cloudburst Totem has so many different interactions with how your class works, with your talents, with your cooldowns, and a lot of the time, you might be doing a raid or Mythic Plus or whatever, and you're like pressing a Cloudburst Totem, you're using a cooldown, so you're kind of building up your Cloudburst, building up, there's damage happening, you pop it, and you heal everyone up, and you feel like, wow, that was really satisfying, but it required knowledge of the fights, it required good usage of my cooldowns. Now, on the flip side, Healing Stream Totem, which has been buffed, we talked about the fact, and Healing Stream Totem is doing really good numbers both in Mythic Plus and raid content, and I've been running Healing Stream Totem in all forms of content, and it's kind of blasting. It's doing so well for the little amount of effort that you have to put in. Healing Stream Totem does not have the same interaction the Cloudburst Totem has. Healing Stream Totem is very passive amount of healing. Again, you do have certain talents like Totemic Recall that interact with it, but it's not all that deep. You can almost compare it to something like Restoration Druid Grove Guardians, but for Restoration Druid Grove Guardians, you kind of want to make sure that HOTS are out there on the party in order to take advantage of your mastery. For Resto Shamans, it doesn't even have that kind, like, it's very simplistic in terms of how you use it. It's providing a lot of HPS. It simplifies the class in a great deal. And this is what I really want to know your opinions about. If there's only one thing you're going to respond in this video, one comment you're going to make, let me know which type of player you are. Do you enjoy Cloudburst Totem, or do you enjoy Healing Stream Totem type of gameplay? Something that requires min-maxing, aka Cloudburst Totem, or something that is extremely passive, you press it and kind of leave it in terms of Healing Stream? Because I'm guessing, or I'm willing to believe, that there's probably going to be more haters of Cloudburst Totem than the enjoyers. But that is something that, again, field crafting and just taking numbers out of thin air. So let me know how you feel about that, because right now I'm expecting a lot of Resto Shamans to try out Healing Stream Totem. I'm expecting a lot of Resto Shamans to try it out in Mythic Plus, in raids, and see how it compares. I'm sure if you're a Resto Shaman who really likes Cloudburst Totem, you can still play it, you can still have good numbers. It just requires a lot more min-maxing in order to get the best use out of Cloudburst Totem, versus just kind of press and forget gameplay that something like Healing Stream Totem provides. Again, there's vast differences in the amount of effort and the gameplay that Cloudburst Totem or Healing Stream Totem will require basically from the player, and I think different type of players are going to radiate towards different type of gameplay. I have made my opinions clear in terms of my enjoyment for Cloudburst Totem. I think it made Resto Shamans in terms of adding additional complexity. So I've been doing a little bit of Mythic Plus, I've been doing a little bit of raid with the new Restoration Shaman, with the new Healing Stream Totem. Again, I got my 4 set in a span of 1 day, and I was trying to experiment to see how big the power spike is going to be both in raids and Mythic Plus in terms of how the class is going to feel in terms of power. And again, I got the 4 set, I'm around 470 item level, and I thought it was alright. I thought the power spike was okay. I'm not a huge enjoyer of the tier set. I've talked about this throughout the whole PTR testing. I tested, or the tier set went through multiple different iterations in terms of nerfing it, in terms of buffing it, in terms of changing it, and I think the tier set, again, it provides different values based on the different builds you're playing, whether you're playing in Mythic Plus or whether you're playing in Raid. There are a few raiding builds which kind of play towards the 4 set, but it's not really all that popular. A lot of raiding Resto Shamans end up playing that chain heal build. So there's a lot of different kind of aspects of the tier set, and it was alright. I'm not a huge enjoyer, I'm not a huge hater of the tier set. I did the exact same thing with my Restoration Druid, where I went from the old tier set to the new tier set in a span of 1 day. Then I went to a Mythic Plus dungeon, and honestly, my world was... it was a different game that I was playing. The power spike was absolutely insane for my Restoration Druid. For Resto Shaman, I did the exact same thing. The power spike was not comparable, but again, that is probably more of a testament to how strong Restoration Druid tier set is in something like 5-man content, because honestly, it kind of carries the class. So Resto Shaman, at the end of the day, I'm enjoying it a lot, especially in Mythic Plus content. I've been doing a little bit of raiding with that chain heal build, and I thought that was fun. I was using Healing Stream Totem. I'm not a huge enjoyer of that Healing Stream Totem build because it is very passive. I like that bit of skill ceiling that is brought to you by Cloudburst Totem, but honestly, for me, it almost feels like sometimes that the amount of effort versus the reward that you're getting from Cloudburst Totem might not always be worth it. Sometimes I might just be like, hey, I'm just gonna take it easy and just press Healing Stream Totem and still have decent numbers. So there's a bit of that conversation floating in my head right now versus, how do I say, effort versus reward, and I almost feel like Cloudburst Totem could be... Again, it's up to you to decide. It's your preference. This is my subjective opinion in terms of what I'm enjoying right now. In terms of Mythic Plus, I can definitely tell you that Shaman, or actually in all forms of content, Shaman is a big underdog. I think the HPS they provide, the DPS they provide, again, in Mythic Plus content, I have 470 gear. I don't really have great DPS trinkets. I don't have amazing itemization right now, but the numbers I'm pulling are pretty good. The numbers in terms of HPS are pretty good. The numbers in terms of DPS are pretty good. I'm enjoying the single target healing the Resto Shaman provides. Like, I'm really kind of topping up people with my single target heals, and that feels really nice. I like the fact that you have multiple different builds emerging. Also, and this is something that I'm gonna say, I don't want people to get angry and things like that, but Resto Shaman for me is one of the best weekly key healers in the game right now. There's a lot of people who are looking at plus 28, plus 29 keys, and they're like, hey, this will increase Restoration, Druid, Mistweaver, Monk. They're all floating about in that top end. What about the people, and there's a lot of people out there who just want to get their 20 weekly key, maybe something a little bit above 20s, and they're looking for a healer that can carry the group. And honestly, for me, one of the best carry healers out there is Restoration Shaman. There's multiple reasons why I would prefer, if I'm doing a plus 20 key or something, I would invite Restoration Shaman over something like a Discipline Priest. And that's not because Discipline Priests are bad. Discipline Priests are one of the meta healers, but that's in high keys with organized group, with people that can make use of things like Power Infusion, PI. For that weekly key, Restoration Shaman provides a plethora of utility that can actually save you the key. For example, you have one of the best interrupts in the game. You're ranged. Your interrupt is also ranged. It has a short cooldown. You have AoE stops. You have a knockups with Thunderstorm, depending on which talent you're running. You have Poison Cleansing Totem. You have Purge. You have Reincarnation for those oopsies. And you have Bloodlust on top of plethora of other things that you can spec into. And again, Bloodlust is not that big of a deal for really high keys where you bring Augmentation of Ochre, and that is mainly to do with survivability more than actually the damage, but we're not talking about the highest keys. So you have Augmentation in the highest keys, which is fine, they provide Bloodlust. But in lower keys, you absolutely do not need to have an Augmentation of Ochre, and a lot of the times in lower keys, Augmentation of Ochre, my personal experience, I'd rather have 3 DPS in lower keys than bring an Augmentation of Ochre for multiple reasons. We're not going to get into that, but I think Restoration Shaman for that weekly key, I don't think there's a better healer out there in terms of actually carrying your group. The fact, again, we talked about the interrupt. There's so many dungeons out there that require interrupts. It is actually insane. And having a ranged, short cooldown interrupt is really, really crazy. The amount of control you have in your group is really, really... Again, I don't wanna make it out that Resto Shaman is the meta healer that you need to invite for everything, but I'm just want to try to showcase that these tier lists, where you look at the best healers and the highest keys in the world, they don't mean a whole lot when you go down those key levels in that weekly key level or a little bit higher, because again, I talked about this, majority of people out there are just looking to do those keys, and Resto Shaman is a great choice. I'm having a lot of fun. The output I'm doing is fun. I've been a big enjoyer of Resto Shaman for a long time. The Healing Stream Cloudburst Totem change is a bit of a double-edged sword for me, because, how do I say, I enjoy the Cloudburst Totem, I enjoy the complexity that it provides, but now I'm kind of asking myself, is the effort worth the reward? And I'm sure in the highest keys in the world, in the highest content, if you're the best or if you're a really good Cloudburst user, you're going to use Cloudburst and you're going to have really good numbers. But I think a lot of Resto Shamans out there are just going to be like, hey, I just want to take it easy, let's spec into Healing Stream Totem. And I'm not sure if that's the best design of the class, but let me know how I feel about this. And again, I did play Resto Shaman quite a bit in raids as well. I didn't get to do as many raids as I wanted to. There are multiple different builds out there. We talked about this. There are a couple of builds or healers or Resto Shaman players out there who are playing towards the 4-set bonus, which provides a different gameplay. There's a lot of, again, the most popular build right now seems to be that Chain Heal build. And Chain Heal build, you can still have a lot of issues with Shaman in terms of mana management, in terms of how you use your heals and things like that. So you have to be very careful about mana as Resto Shaman. There's a lot of negatives the Shaman has as well, but I can't help and wonder that a lot of the Shaman meta perceptions are based on what they're bringing to the party, what they're bringing to the raid. And if Shaman actually had something like a substantial group buff, maybe something, again, I don't want to compare it to something like, you know, Restoration Druid or Druid Mark of the Wild or Priest 42, or if they had something along the lines of that, I think Shaman would be viewed a lot more favorable. The fact that you had healers like Preservation Evokers and classes like Augmentation being created in Dragonflight, which also provide Bloodlust, did not really help Resto Shaman meta perception, specifically in that Mythic Plus content. So if, again, if there was a raid buff the Shamans could provide, I think it would be, again, a decent raid buff the Shamans could provide. I think it would be a different kind of talking point when you talk about meta in all forms of content. But guys, let me know how you feel about Resto Shaman. I think it is the biggest underdog in Dragonflight right now. I think there are quite a few things wrong with Resto Shaman. I think there are quite a few things that could be changed, but overall, the meta perception really doesn't depict the true value that Shaman brings both in raids and Mythic Plus content. We're not talking about the highest Mythic Plus keys, we're not talking about the highest Mythic rating and things like that, because let's be honest, that only impacts a minuscule percentage of the player base. Most of the players out there are looking for a healer that can carry the group, and honestly, Resto Shaman is not only going to be fun to play, not only has good output out there, but it also has so much utility, so much group control, especially in the Mythic Plus content, that you can take matters in your hands. And doing that can provide a lot of fun and a lot of value. Guys, let me know how you feel about this and leave a comment. If there's only one thing you're going to talk about, or leave a comment about Healing Stream Totem or Cloudburst Totem. Micromanagement, optimization versus simplicity. Which one do you prefer? Let me know how you feel about this video. Leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next guide.